We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Our guest this morning is Jennifer Thompson. She was the attorney for Emanuel Samson, and going prior to that, she was the attorney for Zach Adams in the Holly Bobo case. And we can take your calls and questions, 737-7587. We're also streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com. Questions there. A lot of people messaging us there more than calling right now, and we have someone watching right now in Norway. So anyway, appreciate that. Some people are just curious about your legal background. How long have you been practicing law? Where did you get your start, and how have you come to this point?
Okay. Well, I went to University of Tennessee Law School. I graduated in 1996. After there was a few years after college where I was a computer programmer for an insurance company, and so then I went back to law school. My first year out of law school, I clerked for a judge on the Court of Criminal Appeals, Gary Wade. And then came to Nashville. Pretty much about the time I arrived in Nashville, I started my own practice, went out on my own, and have been practicing on my own ever since. I guess 98 is when I
Always criminal?
I do some divorce and family law, especially if there's allegations of some type of abuse.
Okay.
And I've done a few other little things here and there. One time I did a cat killing case. Yeah. I did a dog shooting case one time. I've had the odd little...
Well, did you not represent the woman who sent the child back to Russia?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember that case several years back where there was an adoption and there was a woman who brought the child here or adopted, and there were issues, I guess, with the child, and it was bad, and frankly, in my opinion, she just put him on a plane and sent him back to Russia, and there were some legal issues, and Russia shut down adoptions for a while. That was really the first time you got on my radar on a very high-profile case. That was, more than 10 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, that was probably in 06, 08.
Okay, that was a biggie. As far as you then being clear, private practice, you were not a public defender. You were not necessarily assigned to Emanuel Samson. They came to you, which means that his family paid you. Now, a case like this, certain attorneys would charge a fortune.
Right.
Emanuel Samson's not a wealthy guy delivering pizzas. I don't know about his family, but I mean, you must. How did you work that out?
With his family, they came to talk to me, and I have a son who is not the same as Emanuel Samson, but I adopted a son who's African American. He's the same age as Emanuel Samson, and they were in high school the same year. And so I think that I kind of looked at Emanuel Samson and thought, well, had I not adopted my son, he might be in more of a situation like Emanuel. I know what happened with Emanuel was a terrible thing, but it only takes a second. And I'm not talking about that case in particular, but I run into a lot of young adults. It only takes 1 second for somebody to make a bad decision that ruins their life and ruins everybody else's life, all the people connected, the victim's life. And it's so sad that just takes 1 second sometimes for somebody to do something and change everything. And I just really touched my heart. And so I wanted very much to try to take on and be the person to help Emanuel Samson as best I could, although I knew it was a tough case.
I'm just wondering, as people hear you say that, and again, those who are out there right now saying, look, I don't like her because she represents these people that killed. Now, listen, thank goodness there are public defenders that will, or, I know you're a private, I'm saying public defenders or private attorneys that represent people when they're charged, because if there's no one there to represent them, our legal system falls apart. So don't hold it against any attorney because they're defending someone under the law that's innocent until proven guilty. But people hearing you say what you just said, I mean, with what Emanuel Samson's accused of, it's real hard for a lot of us to have any sympathy for that guy. And I understand he had a horrible childhood, but we heard his sister testifying to the same thing. She lived through it, and she didn't shoot up a church. So what's his excuse?
Okay, so this is the thing I can't answer. Why is it that some people do, they have similar backgrounds and some people do bad things? I think the science at some point in the future is going to help us understand that better. There's lots of people suffer from depression. Not everybody kills themselves, but sometimes people can contemplate suicide, but they don't actually do it. And then sometimes people do go ahead and kill themselves. Why do some people do that and others don't? I don't know. So why do some people with mental health and mental diseases commit a crime like Ryan King? Why did he commit a crime?
The Waffle House shooting, yeah.
Other people don't? That I don't know, and I think science is going to help us with that in the future. But it happens, and I think, can we just move into the whole mental health issue now?
Well, let's take a phone call, and we can touch on that as well. And I know that's important to you because that comes out of a lot of the cases you handle. Let's take a call from Tricia. Tricia, good morning, Tricia. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Well, I have a few things on my mind, and I would appreciate being able to express all of them.
Well, it depends how long you go, if I cut you off or not. So go ahead.
Well, I've heard you allow many people.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Just don't.
I hope you'll do the same for me.
Well,
okay?
It depends how long you go.
First of all, I just want to shed some light on this question that Nick you had about mental illness. The reason why some people act certain ways and others don't, it has to do with the degree and the type of personality or brain makeup, you might say. Some people are more sensitive to trauma than other people. Some people have better help with that trauma than other people.
I think that's
so
true.
That's the reason. Now let me move on to my other question for the attorney. Now that Mr. Samson has been sentenced to life, I want to ask you about the disparities in the criminal justice system. I think about the fella down in, I think it's Louisiana, who killed those 9 parishioners. He was able to negotiate a life in prison where he should have gotten a death penalty. So my question is, what do you think about the disparities in the criminal justice system, particularly, I think, when it comes to race? And I clearly believe that a black person is not given the same consideration as like Caucasians. And also, these next 2 cases that are coming up, Rinky, you mentioned, and this Cummings guy who killed all these people, do you not think then they should definitely get the death penalty and not be allowed to negotiate life, since they're going to give this poor guy, Samson, who was clearly mentally ill and traumatized? Because I remember in years past, let me just interject this, I remember many years past when people who were mentally ill, they would be put in like a psychiatric facility for life, and they could never get out. And I think of this guy who tried to kill the President Reagan, who I think he's out now. And he almost killed the president, but still after 30, 40 years, whatever it was, he still got out. So I just like you to kind of respond, particularly on these next 2 cases about Rinky and this other guy. Do you think they should get the death penalty?
Comments. All right. Thank you, Tricia. I don't know where you want to start. You touched on a lot of points there, but yeah, with regard to...
So race, I think with race and sentencing, I think there's no question that there is a racist factor in our criminal justice system. When you look, have recently been out to the jail. When you look at the county jail and the number of black people in the county jail versus how many black people live in Davidson County, it's not, the numbers are not the same. There's very significant African American population in the jails and prisons, and it's not as significant within society. So I think the other thing that we can't see, it's easy to look at a group of people and race sticks out. The thing that you can't see is wealth. If we could look at people and point out, oh, he's rich, he's poor, he's rich, I think you might even find a lot more disparities between wealthy and poor in terms of imprisonment.
I was wondering, some people were asking about, and we'll take a break, but real quick, with regard to, it was you, and you had a couple of staffers. Then you have the district attorney's office with their resources. Were you able to get some help from the state, for instance, to hire that doctor that ended up testifying at sentencing? Because it seems like you're limited in your resources. Emanuel Samson was not a rich man.
Right.
So I'm just curious, how does that play out?
Samson was poor.
How does that play out then? Do you get some assistance from the state for certain things?
We were able to get some assistance for the doctor, to pay for the doctor.
Okay.
And to pay for some services, but not for a second attorney. Duffy was volunteering, so he was a really good, kind person.
It was basically you. It was you.
So he was just a really good, kind person to come in, but criminal justice is really important to him, and he's a new, up-and-coming, great lawyer.
Yeah. All right, listen, we'll take a break. As we do, just to remind yourself, everyone, whether it's Emanuel Samson, Zach Adams, anyone who's accused of a crime deserves legal representation. And the folks who do that are to be commended. Doesn't mean they are approving of what the individuals are accused of, but that's the way our system works. It's after the fact that punishment needs to come in if they're found guilty. Look, we'll take a break. We'll take more calls, comments. We're streaming live on Facebook as well, and I'm going to give you a chance also to talk more about the mental health issue, which oftentimes plays a big role in a lot of the cases you've handled. We'll be back with more right after this.